Okay, so toddler is saying no a lot or saying things like get away from me, or if the adult and the child are together on play equipment, saying get off in a kind of a startling way. And the question is both, how do I talk to the child about how that language impacts me? But then separately, I do want him to be able to say no, and I want to nurture that he's allowed to say no and speak up for himself. The first question, what do I do about the way the no is coming out? Two things tend to contribute to this. One is it could be a monkey see, monkey do situation. So I encourage people in the household to just really think carefully about how all of the people in the household, the adults, older siblings, are communicating with one another. If you are seeing a behavior you don't like, really the most effective thing to do is to try to come at it from multiple directions. Try to come at it both in terms of like, how consistent are we being about this family value that we don't speak to each other that way? How are we role modeling that? But then also, how do you respond in the moment? And honestly, I would respond in the moment with a light touch. Talk about the impact. When you say something to me in a stern way like that, or I might even simplify and say, when you say get off, and I would sort of perform it back, kind of makes me feel bad, like you don't want me here. But if you want some space, you can just say, please give me my own space. So you can offer a different way to say it and try to help the child say the thing they actually mean when they're saying get off. And because one of the big contributors here is that young children are amoral. What that means is that they just don't have a lot of experience yet with the nuances of polite society. They just don't know yet that we like one another to convey feelings and thoughts and wants in kind of very specific ways, that there are rules about your affect and your word choice. And so, very gently, we have to role model what our community rules are, and we have to reinforce them in a direct but gentle way. Okay, now the second question is, how do I support, generally speaking, the child asserting themselves and saying no? Well, good news, if you have a child who's saying no a lot and saying get away and get off and those kinds of things, you've done it. You have made it safe for your child to say no to you. They know that. And so you keep doing what you've been doing. You don't have to overthink it, which is to say, it sounds like probably some examples of things that are typically in the ecosystem if children are able to say no is that the people in the household are saying no to one another and accepting boundaries from each other. Again, role modeling is such a big part of the equation. And that when a child says no, you do everything you can to accept that no. Now, sometimes we can't accept it. Sometimes they're like, no, I don't want to go to school. And the answer is, well, you have to. I tell my children, it's the law. I have to send you to school. They require it of me. You have to go. That's not a choice. But I understand you don't, what you're saying to me is you don't really want to. And sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. I get it, which is also a way to safely accept no, even if you can't accept the outcome of the no. But in general, if a child is expressing preferences and saying no about things that actually are very doable, are not tied to family values, like, I really want some space to myself on the trampoline, or I don't really want to eat broccoli tonight. Really reflect to yourself, can I accept this no? Sometimes we have a knee jerk, like, no one tells me no, kind of an instinct. A child can't say no, an adult has to be in control. It's like an instinct, right? So we have to really pause and reflect and say, however this came out, can I actually accept this no? And I would say more often than you think, it is perfectly fine to say, you don't want me right here next to you. And I'm glad you told me that. I'm gonna move away. It sounds like when he said get down to you, he was saying to you, come here, play with me. And it's fairly straightforward through practice and relationships over and over, being consistent, saying back to him, ooh, get down doesn't feel good. But I think you mean come play with me, and I would love to come play with you. And it's real straightforward because what you're doing is saying, oh, you don't know there's a different way we say that here. So let me teach it to you. Think about it as if he was speaking in another language, but was eager to learn the language you speak. You would say, it's not exactly how we phrase that here, right? Here's a better way to phrase it. Maybe something that's helpful to remember is that feelings, as we think of them, emotion words, are only one kind of internal state. So when we say that we want to help children understand what they feel, what we mean is we want to give voice, recognition to whatever's happening inside as much as we give to the outside. And so then I like to think of those things as two things that hold hands. There's what you see on the outside, and there's what we think might be happening inside. And you have to respond to both. You have to say, ooh, ouch. The way you said that hurt. But what I think you're feeling and thinking is, I would sort of keep it simple in a way. Our first instinct as adults, because we have power, and we're taught that when a person has power, they should automatically expect there's an etiquette that other people speak to the person in power deferentially. And I am agnostic about whether or not this is a family value. It is perfectly reasonable to be an adult who thinks, my belief is that it's good for children to defer to adults. You just have to understand that that is an etiquette rule. It's something that has to be learned over time. And the presence of the child not having that rule internalized doesn't mean anything stable or permanent about them. It doesn't mean that they're obstinate or antisocial or aggressive. You just have to take some more time reinforcing in a consistent way, this is the rule around here.